Jake Miller watched the alien ships fill the space around Earth. The massive vessels blocked out the stars and made the night sky glow with their strange blue lights. He stood on the bridge of the UES Liberty with his hands behind his back and tried to keep his face calm. His crew looked at him with worried eyes, but nobody spoke. The communication screen flickered and came alive. A tall creature made of what looked like living crystal appeared on the display. Its body sparkled with inner light and its voice sounded like breaking glass when it spoke. "I am Zeph Prime of the Galactic Council. We have come to deliver our final judgment on the human species." Lisa Carter stepped forward from her position at the communications station. As Admiral of the Earth Defense Fleet, she had dealt with aliens before, but never like this. Never with so many ships and never with such cold words. "We are listening," she said. "Humans have been classified as a chaos species. Your expansion into our galaxy has been aggressive and unpredictable. You do not follow the established order. You question authority. You adapt too quickly to new situations. This makes you dangerous to galactic stability." Jake felt his jaw tighten. They were being punished for being human. "What is your decision?" Lisa asked. "Immediate confinement to your solar system. All human vessels must return to Earth space within 72 hours. After that time, a quantum barrier will be erected around your entire system. Any attempt to leave will result in complete annihilation of your species." The screen went dark. Jake looked around the bridge and saw his own shock reflected in every face. They were being locked up like criminals. Worse than criminals, they were being forgotten. Ben Rodriguez was 3 days out from the asteroid mining station when the barrier activated. He commanded the cargo vessel Aurora's Edge and was bringing refined metals back to Mars colony when the space around him began to shimmer. At first he thought it was engine trouble, but then his sensors picked up the energy readings. A wall of quantum energy now surrounded their entire solar system. It reached out past Pluto and created a perfect sphere around everything they had ever called home. Ben tried to send a message to Mars, but the signal bounced back. Nothing could get through. On Earth, the emergency meetings never seemed to end. President Alex Turner sat at the head of the table in the crisis room deep under Washington. Around him sat the brightest minds humanity had to offer. Military leaders argued about fighting back. Scientists talked about finding weaknesses in the barrier. Politicians debated surrender. Helen Foster sat quietly at the far end of the table. She was thin and pale from spending too many hours in her laboratory, but her eyes were sharp and focused. When the arguing got too loud, she finally stood up. "We cannot break through the barrier," she said. "I have run every calculation. The quantum field is too stable and too strong, but perhaps we do not need to break through it." The room fell silent. Turner leaned forward. "What do you mean, Dr. Foster? What if we could go around it? Not through normal space, but through folded dimensions. I have been working on theoretical models for dimensional manipulation. With enough power and the right equations, we might be able to create rifts in space itself." "That sounds like science fiction," said General Mark Davis. "So did faster than light travel once. So did quantum computers. So did genetic therapy. Humans have always turned science fiction into science fact when we needed to survive." Turner studied her face. Helen Foster had never been wrong about the big things. Her theories had led to breakthroughs in energy production and space travel. If anyone could find a way out of this trap, it would be her. "How long would you need?" 6 months for a working prototype. "Maybe less if we can use the resources from the Mars shipyards." "Do it." The next months passed like a fever dream. Helen worked with a team of the best scientists from Earth and Mars. They built their laboratory in secret on a small asteroid far from the main shipping lanes. The official reports listed their work as advanced power system research, but everyone involved knew they were really building humanity's escape route. The first test nearly killed them all. The dimensional rift opened for exactly 3 seconds before collapsing and sending a shock wave through the asteroid. Half their equipment was destroyed, and 2 scientists suffered radiation burns. But it had worked. For 3 seconds they had torn a hole in reality itself. The second test was more controlled. They managed to keep a small rift stable for nearly a minute, long enough to send a probe through and get it back with data from somewhere else. Somewhere the quantum barrier could not reach. Jake Miller volunteered for the first human test. His ship, the Liberty, was small and fast with the best pilot humanity had trained. Helen's team installed the dimensional fold generator in place of half the cargo bay. The device was huge and ugly and hummed with dangerous energy, but it was their only hope. "Remember," Helen said as Jake prepared to leave, The rift will only stay open for 10 minutes. If you are not back by then, we may not be able to open another one for days. I understand. And Jake, if this works, we will need to be very careful. The aliens cannot know what we are doing. As far as they are concerned, we are still trapped here like good little prisoners. Jake nodded and sealed his helmet. The Liberty moved away from the asteroid and powered up its new engine. Space in front of the ship began to twist and bend. Colors that had no names swirled in patterns that hurt to look at. Then reality tore open like paper and showed a view of stars that were not in their sky. The ship slipped through the dimensional rift and emerged in empty space light years from home. Jake's sensors confirmed what they had hoped. The quantum barrier was nowhere to be found. He was outside the prison that held his species. He stayed for exactly 9 minutes, long enough to confirm that the dimensional fold could carry a ship safely across vast distances, long enough to prove that humanity was not as trapped as their captors believed. Then he flew back through the closing rift to report the impossible. They had found their way out. Over the following weeks, more ships made the journey. Each time they learned something new about the dimensional fold technology. Each time they stayed away a little longer. The aliens watching their prison saw nothing unusual. All human ships remained inside the barrier exactly as ordered. But in the spaces between dimensions, a new chapter of human history was beginning to write itself. The species that had been forgotten and exiled was about to become something the galaxy had never seen before. Something free. 50 years had passed since the Great Exile began. Danny Clark sat in the captain's chair of the Shadowrunner and watched the stars shift around his ship. The dimensional fold drive hummed quietly beneath his feet as reality bent to let them pass through spaces that did not exist on any map. His ship emerged from the fold near Vega Prime, one of the busiest trading stations in this part of the galaxy. The massive structure spun slowly in space with hundreds of alien ships docked to its arms. Ships from the Galactic Council moved in and out like insects around a hive. "Cloak is holding steady, Captain," said his navigator Sarah Johnson. She monitored the scanner displays that showed their ship was completely invisible to alien sensors. The technology had come a long way since those first desperate experiments. Now human ships could slip through space like ghosts. "Any Council patrol ships in the area?" Danny asked. 3 cruisers holding position near the outer docking ring. "They look bored. Probably routine security." Danny smiled. The aliens had grown lazy in their 50 years of peace. They had classified the human problem as solved and moved on to other concerns. That mistake was going to cost them everything. "Take us to the dark side of that moon. Tony should be waiting for us there." The Shadowrunner moved through space without disturbing so much as a single photon. They passed close enough to the Council cruisers to read the serial numbers on their hulls, but the alien crews never knew death had sailed right past them. Tony Martinez stood on the observation deck of the construction platform watching his people work. Admiral Martinez commanded the largest secret construction project in human history. Around him, thousands of workers in environmental suits assembled the pieces of Haven Alpha, humanity's first colony outside their prison. The moon they had chosen was perfect for their needs. No atmosphere to worry about, no life signs to attract attention, no strategic value that might bring alien investigators. Just a cold ball of rock orbiting a gas giant that nobody cared about. But beneath the surface, everything was different. Human engineers had hollowed out vast spaces in the rock and filled them with air and light, and the sound of human voices. They had built a city that could house 50,000 people and factories that could build anything they needed. "How long until we can bring in the first civilian transport?" Tony asked his construction chief. 2 more weeks for the main residential section, but the manufacturing bays are already online. "We can start building the next wave of ships whenever you give the word." Tony nodded. Each colony would build 3 more colonies. Each of those would build 3 more. Within 20 years, they would have hundreds of hidden worlds scattered across the galaxy. The aliens would never find them all. Danny's ship landed in the secret docking bay carved into the moon's north pole. He walked through corridors that looked exactly like the ones back on Earth, except for the low gravity and the, knowledge that they were surrounded by vacuum and
"Hostile alien space. Welcome to Haven Alpha, Captain,"
Tony said as they met in his office. Through the window behind him lay a view that still amazed Danny every time he saw it. A human city built in secret in the heart of enemy territory. "Status report, Admiral?" "Better than we hoped. The dimensional fold drives are working perfectly. No alien sensors can detect our ships when cloaked. We have established supply lines to 12 other hidden sites and recruited our first alien allies. Aliens working with us? Not all species love the Council's rule. The Zephyrians are tired of being treated like servants. The Krell want revenge for what happened to their homeworld. The Vorthon see opportunity in chaos. They provide information and we provide hope. Danny accepted a cup of real coffee, grown in Haven Alpha's hydroponic farms. It tasted like freedom. What about Dr. Walsh's xenobiology program? Amy's work has been incredible. She has identified 17 species with active resistance movements, 12 more that could be turned against the Council with the right pressure. And she has confirmed something we suspected all along, which is, humans are genuinely different. We adapt faster than any other known species. We see patterns that others miss. We find solutions where others see only problems. 50 years of exile have made us stronger while the Council has grown weaker. Amy Walsh looked up from her microscope as they entered her laboratory. She was surrounded by samples and data screens showing the genetic profiles of dozens of alien species. Her work here was helping humanity understand their enemies and their potential friends. "Show them the adaptation study," Tony said. Amy pulled up a chart on the main display. "We tested human colonists against native populations from 12 different worlds. Same environmental challenges, same resource limitations, same time frame. And humans adapted 400% faster on average. We found solutions the native species never considered. We survived in places they said were uninhabitable. And most importantly, we did it while maintaining our cultural identity and social bonds." Danny studied the data. "What does this mean for our expansion plans?" "It means we can colonize worlds that others cannot. It means we can survive in places where they would never think to look for us. And it means that in any fair competition we will eventually win." Steve Peters commanded the Ghost Fleet from his flagship, the Whisper. His ships moved through Council space like invisible predators, watching and learning and occasionally striking at targets of opportunity. They had rescued 3 transport ships full of political prisoners. They had stolen advanced technology from Council research stations. They had planted listening devices in alien communication networks. Most importantly, they had begun spreading the word that humanity was not gone. That somewhere in the darkness between the stars, humans were building something new. Something the Council should fear. Captain Peters, his communications officer, called out, "We are receiving a transmission from Haven Alpha. Admiral Martinez wants all Ghost Fleet commanders to return for a conference." "Set course for home," Steve ordered. "And send word to our other units. I think it's time to begin Phase 2. The conference room at Haven Alpha held 20 of humanity's best military leaders. Men and women who had spent the last decade learning to fight in the shadows, learning to strike without warning and vanish without trace, learning to be the nightmare that aliens whispered about in the dark. Tony stood before a star map that showed Council space. Red dots marked their known positions. Blue dots showed potential targets. Green dots indicated friendly contacts. "Phase 1 is complete," he announced. "We have established 57 hidden colonies across 12 star systems. We have built a fleet of over 2,000 cloaked ships. We have recruited allies among 15 different species. Most importantly, we have remained completely invisible to Council intelligence." Danny raised his hand. "What is Phase 2? Revolution. We start hitting them where it hurts. Supply convoys, communication relays, isolated patrol ships. We make them afraid to travel alone. We show the galaxy that the mighty Council cannot protect their own people. Won't that expose us? Not if we do it right. Every attack will be blamed on pirates or rebels or unknown raiders. The Council will never suspect that their prisoners escaped 50 years ago and have been building an empire right under their noses." Amy spoke from the back of the room. "My contacts among the resistance groups are ready to coordinate. When Council forces are weakened by our attacks, the rebels will strike at government centers and military bases. The timing has to be perfect." "It will be," Tony said. "We have waited 50 years for this moment. 50 years of being forgotten while we prepared for war. The galaxy is about to remember why they were afraid of humans in the first place." The meeting lasted 6 hours. When it ended, 20 Ghost Fleet captains departed for 20 different star systems. Each carried orders that would begin humanity's return to galactic prominence. Each knew that the next phase would be more dangerous than anything they had attempted before. But they also knew that humans had advantages their enemies could not match. Speed and stealth and the desperate hunger of a species that refused to stay caged. The galaxy was about to learn that some things are more dangerous when you forget about them. Rick Morrison stood in the command center of Fortress Prime, watching displays that showed the locations of 10,000 human ships. 25 years had passed since Phase 2 began, and the Invisible Revolution was working better than anyone had dared hope. The Council was bleeding from 1,000 small cuts while humanity grew stronger with each passing day. "General, the latest reports from Sector 7 are coming in," said his aide, Lieutenant Frank Palmer. "3 more Council supply convoys have gone missing. Their patrol ships are requesting backup, but command is running low on available vessels." Rick smiled as he studied the tactical display. The Ghost Fleet had perfected the art of invisible warfare. They struck fast and hard, then vanished into dimensional folds before enemy reinforcements could respond. To the Council, it looked like random pirate attacks, but Rick knew better. Every strike was planned with surgical precision. "What about the HFY operation?" Captain Adams reports complete success. "The slave world of HFY 7 has been liberated. The reptilian population is armed and ready to defend their freedom. Council forces in that system are requesting immediate evacuation." Rick nodded with satisfaction. Joe Adams was one of their best field commanders. The man had a gift for inspiring alien resistance movements and teaching them how to fight their oppressors. Kate Phillips sat in her office on Haven Beta reviewing intelligence reports from across the galaxy. As Director of Human Intelligence Operations, she commanded a network of spies and informants that the Council could never have imagined. Humans disguised as aliens held key positions in government offices, military commands, and trading corporations throughout known space. Her latest asset was particularly valuable. Commander Bill Rogers had used genetic therapy to appear as a Zentorian officer and had worked his way up to become a staff aide to the Council's military leadership. The intelligence he provided was priceless. Director Phillips, her communications officer, announced, "Priority message from Agent Rogers on Centauri Prime." Kate activated the secure channel and Bill's altered face appeared on her screen. His blue skin and elongated skull made him look exactly like a native Zentorian, but his eyes were still human. "The Council is in panic mode," he reported. "They estimate they have lost over 30% of their patrol fleet to what they call the Ghost Raiders. Military commanders are demanding answers that the leadership cannot provide." "What about their investigation into the attacks?" "Going nowhere. Every time they send a task force to investigate a raid site, they find nothing but wreckage and radiation. No witnesses, no clues, no way to track the attackers. Some of the younger officers are starting to whisper about supernatural forces." Kate felt a surge of pride. Human stealth technology had advanced to the point where they were literally invisible to alien sensors. Combined with their dimensional fold drives, they could appear anywhere in the galaxy and vanish without leaving so much as a heat signature. "Any word on increased security around Earth?" "That's the beautiful part. They still think you are all safely locked up behind the quantum barrier. The idea that humans might be responsible for these attacks has never even been suggested. You are the ghost that haunts their dreams, but they don't believe in ghosts." Joe Adams watched the burning wreckage of the Council patrol ship drift through space near the Rigel system. His attack squadron had hit the enemy vessel with such overwhelming force that the battle lasted less than 3 minutes. Now the alien crew was dead and their ship was becoming space debris. "All units report in," he ordered over the comm system. "Striker 2 here. No damage and full ammunition remaining. Striker 3 ready for next target. Striker 4 standing by." Joe checked his tactical display. 3 more Council ships were moving toward their position, but they were still 20 minutes away. More than enough time to complete the mission and escape through a dimensional fold. "Target the communication relay," Joe commanded. "I want that station reduced to scrap metal in the next 5 minutes." His ships moved toward the massive structure that served as the primary communication hub for this entire sector. The station's defenses were impressive by alien standards, but laughable compared to human technology. Their weapons could not even penetrate the cloaking fields that surrounded the attacking ships. The relay station died in a storm of energy fire and exploding metal. Joe's squadron vanished into dimensional space, just as the Council reinforcements arrived to find nothing but debris and unanswered distress. Calls Lucy Green commanded the Liberation Fleet that had been assigned to free the HFY slave worlds. The reptilian species had been enslaved for over 3 centuries, but human weapons and tactics were changing that situation rapidly. Her ships had already freed 4 worlds and were preparing to assault the main slave processing center. Status report on the ground forces? She asked her tactical officer. The HFY rebels have control of all major cities on the target world. Council garrison forces are trapped in their fortified compounds and requesting immediate evacuation. Our human advisors report that reptilian morale is extremely high. Lucy studied the battle reports with satisfaction. The HFY had proven to be natural warriors once they were properly armed and trained. Their reptilian physiology made them incredibly tough, and their hatred of their former masters made them fearless in battle. What about the Council response? They are sending a battle fleet to retake the system. Estimated arrival in 6 days. Perfect. That gives us time to set up a proper welcome for them. The Council battle fleet arrived to find the HFY system defended by what appeared to be a small force of obsolete rebel ships. Admiral Zeth Cardinal of the Council Navy ordered an immediate attack, confident that his superior firepower would crush the uprising quickly. He never saw the human ships that were waiting in dimensional space around his fleet. Lucy gave the attack order and reality exploded around the alien vessels. 50 human warships materialized from nowhere and opened fire with weapons that cut through Council shields like paper. The battle was over in minutes, leaving the alien fleet as nothing but wreckage and rescue pods. Broadcast our message to all Council frequencies, Lucy ordered. The transmission went out across the galaxy carrying words that would shake the foundations of alien civilization. The message was simple and direct. The age of slavery was ending. Any species that wanted freedom need only ask, and human ships would come to help them fight for it. Rick Morrison received reports of successful operations from all across human space. The invisible revolution was succeeding beyond their wildest dreams. Council authority was crumbling as species after species rose up against their former masters. The aliens who had once seemed so powerful were proving to be weak and unprepared for real warfare. General, we are receiving communications from resistance movements on 17 different worlds, Frank reported. They are all asking for human support against their local Council forces. What is our current ship availability? We can deploy support fleets to 12 of the requesting systems immediately. The other 5 will have to wait for reinforcements to become available. Rick made his decision. Send the support fleets, and authorize the construction of another 500 combat ships. I want every species in the galaxy to know that humans are back and we are on the side of freedom. Kate Phillips studied the latest intelligence estimates from her network of agents. The picture they painted was clear and encouraging. Council military strength was down by over 60%. Their economy was struggling under the cost of fighting rebellions on dozens of worlds. Public confidence in their leadership was at an all-time low, but most importantly, the Council still had no idea who was really behind their troubles. They blamed pirates and rebels and unknown alien raiders, but the possibility that humans had escaped their prison never occurred to them. Director, her aide announced, we are receiving a priority message from Agent Rogers. He says the Council leadership is calling an emergency session. Kate activated the communication link and listened as Bill described the panic spreading through the highest levels of alien government. They were preparing to consolidate their remaining forces and abandon many of their outer colonies to concentrate on defending their core worlds. This is it, Kate said to herself. They are about to retreat to their strongholds and try to wait out the storm. She opened a channel to Rick Morrison. General, it's time for Phase 3. The Council is retreating. If we move now, we can take control of half the galaxy before they realize what hit them. Rick's voice came back strong and confident. All Ghost Fleet commanders are standing by for orders. The human fleets are fueled and ready for combat. On your word, we launched the largest military operation in galactic history. Kate took a deep breath. Everything humanity had worked for over the past 75 years came down to this moment. They had been forgotten and exiled, but they had used that time to become something the galaxy had never seen before. Something that could not be stopped or contained or defeated. Give the order, General. It's time to come home. Chris Baker stood on the command deck of the Invisible Dawn and watched the largest human fleet ever assembled prepare for battle. 5,000 ships hung in dimensional space around him, each one invisible to alien sensors and armed with weapons that could destroy worlds. The massive dreadnought beneath his feet stretched over 5 kilometers and housed 20,000 of humanity's finest warriors. All fleet commanders report ready for Phase 3 operations, announced his communications officer, Lieutenant Roy Clark. Ghost, Fleet Alpha through Omega, are in position around their target systems. Liberation fleets are standing by to support Allied uprisings. The Council has no idea what is about to hit them. Chris nodded as he studied the tactical displays that showed Council space spread out like a three-dimensional map. Red markers indicated major Council strongholds. Blue markers showed human fleet positions. In 6 hours, those two colors would meet in the largest space battle in galactic history. Signal from President Taylor on New Terra, Roy announced. She is authorizing Operation Homecoming to begin. Monica Taylor sat in the presidential bunker on humanity's new capital world and watched the countdown timer reach 0. New Terra had been built in secret over the past 30 years in a star system the Council had never bothered to explore. Now it served as the command center for an empire that stretched across 40 star systems and controlled the fate of billions of beings. Broadcast the message to all Council frequencies, she ordered her communications staff. It's time the galaxy knew the truth. The signal went out on every alien communication channel simultaneously. Monica's face appeared on screens throughout Council space as she delivered the words that would change everything. I am President Monica Taylor of the Human Galactic Federation. We are the species you exiled 75 years ago. We are the humans you forgot about and dismissed as failures. We have returned not as your prisoners, but as your replacements. The reaction was immediate and devastating. On Centauri Prime, the Council leadership watched in horror as their communication networks displayed the face of a species they thought was safely locked away behind an impenetrable barrier. Emergency alarms sounded throughout their headquarters as the impossible became reality. The quantum barrier is still intact around the Sol system, reported Admiral Vex 9 to the Emergency Council session. Our sensors show no breach in the containment field. This transmission must be some kind of deception. High Chancellor Zeph Prime studied the incoming reports with growing alarm. If the humans are truly confined, then how do you explain the attacks on our shipping? How do you explain the liberation of 17 slave worlds? How do you explain the complete destruction of our patrol fleets in 12 different sectors? Before Admiral Vex 9 could answer the first human attack, fleets dropped out of dimensional space around Centauri Prime itself. Tim Russell commanded the siege fleet, and he had specific orders to demonstrate human superiority without causing unnecessary casualties. All Council vessels, this is Admiral Russell of the Human Space Navy. You are surrounded and outgunned. Surrender immediately and you will not be harmed. Resist and you will be destroyed. The Council defense fleet around their capital world consisted of over 300 ships, including their most advanced dreadnoughts and battlecruisers. They had never lost a major engagement, and their commanders could not believe that any force could threaten them in their own system. This is Admiral Vex 9 of the Council Defense Force. You are in violation of galactic law. Withdraw immediately or face annihilation. Tim smiled as he gave his response. Admiral, you are looking at 50 human warships that appeared from nowhere and completely bypassed your early warning systems. Each one of our vessels is more advanced than your entire fleet combined. I suggest you reconsider your position. The alien admiral's response was to order an attack on the nearest human ship. His fleet opened fire with everything they had, but their energy beams and missile barrages passed harmlessly through empty space. The human vessels had engaged their dimensional phase technology and existed slightly outside normal reality, where conventional weapons could not touch them. Tim's counterattack was swift and surgical. Human ships materialized just long enough to fire precise shots that disabled Council vessels without destroying them completely. Within an hour, the entire alien fleet was drifting helplessly in space with their engines dead and their weapons offline. This is your final warning. Tim broadcast to the surviving Council ships. Surrender now or the next salvo will not be so gentle. Admiral Vex 9 stared at his tactical displays in disbelief. His fleet had been neutralized by an enemy he could barely detect using technology he did not understand. Every principle of warfare he had learned was useless against opponents who could phase in and out of reality at will. All ships stand down, he finally ordered. We surrender to the human forces. Similar scenes played out across 17 Council stronghold systems as human fleets revealed themselves and overwhelmed alien defenders with superior technology and tactics. The simultaneous attacks had been timed to perfection. Council forces could not coordinate a response when their communication networks were jammed and their command structure was under assault. Lisa Hayes broadcast humanity's declaration from the captured Council headquarters on Centauri Prime. She had been chosen for this moment because her voice was calm and reasonable even as she delivered an ultimatum that would reshape the galaxy. People of the Galactic Council, we did not ask for this war. 75 years ago you imprisoned us because you feared our potential. You called us chaos and tried to forget we existed. But humans do not disappear quietly into the night. The transmission reached every inhabited world in Council space. Billions of aliens watched as a human woman stood in the most secure building in their empire and calmly explained how completely their government had failed them. We spent our years of exile building something better than what you took from us. We created new technologies that you cannot match. We formed alliances with species you oppressed. We became the force of liberation that your slaves had been praying for. On Kethai Prime, the reptilian resistance leader, General Sask 9 raised his clawed fist in triumph as he watched human ships destroy the last council garrison in his system. The liberation that had seemed impossible just months ago was now complete thanks to human weapons and tactical support. The age of council domination is over, Lisa continued. Species that want freedom need only ask and we will help you claim it. Those who wish to join our federation as equals are welcome. But those who continue to support oppression and slavery will face the consequences. The psychological impact was devastating. The Council's authority had been based on the belief that they were the most advanced civilization in the galaxy. Humanity's sudden appearance and overwhelming technological superiority shattered that illusion completely. On worlds throughout Council space, subject species began to rise up against their local governors. The successful human attacks had proved that the Council was not invincible. Freedom was possible if they had the courage to reach for it. Chris Baker received reports from all 17 attack fleets. Every operation had succeeded beyond expectations. Council military strength was broken. Their communication networks were under human control. Their political leadership was either captured or in hiding. Signal all fleet commanders, he ordered. Phase 4 begins immediately. I want human ships in every council system within the next 48 hours. Any remaining alien forces that refuse to surrender are to be disarmed and detained. The occupation phase moved with mechanical precision. Human fleets appeared in star systems that had been council territory for centuries and announced new management. Local governments were given simple choices: cooperate with the transition or be replaced by leaders who would. Most chose cooperation. The humans offered something the Council never had: fair treatment for all species regardless of their origin, economic opportunity based on merit rather than racial classification, political representation for populations that had been ignored for generations. Dr. Patricia Green led the transition teams that worked with former Council worlds to establish new governments. Her job was to help alien populations adapt to concepts like individual rights and democratic representation that had been foreign ideas under Council rule. The key is showing them that freedom works, she explained to her staff during a briefing on the newly liberated world of Vega 7. Most of these species have never experienced anything but authoritarian control. They need to see that they can govern themselves and make their own choices. The transformation was remarkable. Within weeks of human occupation, former Council worlds were reporting increased productivity, reduced crime, and higher satisfaction ratings among their populations. The chaos that alien leaders had predicted never materialized. Instead, the galaxy discovered what humans had known all along. Freedom was not chaos. It was the natural state of any intelligent being who was given the chance to determine their own destiny. Back on Centauri Prime High Chancellor, Zeph Prime sat in a detention cell and contemplated the complete collapse of everything he had believed about galactic civilization. The humans had not conquered through brutality or oppression. They had won through superior. William Chen stood in the Grand Assembly Hall on New Terra and looked out at the most remarkable gathering in galactic history. Representatives from over 200 species filled the vast chamber, each one wearing the colors and symbols of worlds that had chosen to join the human galactic empire. The crystalline masters who had once ruled them sat in a small section at the back, no longer the dominant force they had been for centuries. The transformation had taken 5 years to complete. 5 years of careful diplomacy, economic restructuring, and the delicate work of teaching entire civilizations what freedom actually meant. William had been elected emperor not through conquest, but through the democratic votes of species who had experienced both tyranny and liberation. Citizens of the galaxy, William began his address to the assembled delegates. We gather today not as conquerors and conquered, but as partners in building something new. Something based on cooperation rather than domination, something that honors the potential of every intelligent being regardless of their origin or appearance. Amanda. Price sat in the military section and reflected on how much had changed since the early days of the Ghost Fleet. General Price now commanded the Imperial Space Navy, the largest and most advanced military force the galaxy had ever known. But unlike the old Council, fleets her ships were used to protect trade routes and defend peaceful worlds rather than enforce the will of a ruling class. The Imperial Fleet serves all member species equally, she had explained to the new officer candidates during their graduation ceremony the previous week. Our mission is not conquest but protection, not oppression but liberation. We are the shield that stands between freedom and those who would destroy it. The new recruits came from dozens of different worlds. Humans served alongside reptilian HFY, insectoid HFY, and even some of the younger council species who had embraced the ideals of the Empire. The diversity that the old regime had seen as weakness was proving to be humanity's greatest strength. Carl Jones walked through the Integration Center on New Terra, reviewing the latest progress reports. His Department of Galactic Integration had helped over 50 species transition from council rule to imperial citizenship. The work was challenging but incredibly rewarding as entire populations discovered freedoms they had never imagined possible. Director Jones, his assistant, called out, "The Zentorian delegation is here for their final citizenship evaluation." Carl smiled as he reviewed the file. The Zentorians had been among the Council's most loyal supporters, but even they had chosen to join the Empire after seeing how much better life could be under human leadership. Their blue-skinned features still reminded him of the aliens who had once imprisoned his species, but now they were partners working toward a common future. "Send them in. I think they are going to be very happy with their new status." The delegation entered his office led by a young female named Zara 6, who had become their spokesperson during the integration process. She had spent months learning about human concepts like individual rights and representative government. Her enthusiasm for these ideas was genuine and infectious. "Director Jones, we have completed all the requirements you outlined," she said with obvious excitement. "Our planetary government has been restructured to include elected representatives from all population centers. We have established courts that protect individual freedoms. We have even begun teaching our children about the importance of questioning authority rather than simply obeying it." Carl reviewed their final report with satisfaction. The Zentorians had not only met every requirement but exceeded them in several areas. Their transformation from obedient subjects to active citizens was one of the success stories of the integration program. "Congratulations, Zara 6. I am pleased to inform you that Zentori Prime has been approved for full Imperial citizenship. Your species will receive all the benefits and protections that status provides." Nancy White gavelled the Galactic Senate to order and looked out at the diverse crowd of representatives, preparing to debate the latest legislation. Chancellor White had been chosen to lead the new democratic body because of her experience in bringing different viewpoints together to find common solutions. The Senate chamber was designed to accommodate the physical needs of dozens of different species. Environmental controls created different atmospheric zones for beings who breathed different gases. Gravity fields were adjusted for creatures who had evolved on worlds with different masses. Translation systems ensured that every word spoken could be understood by every delegate. "The chair recognizes Senator Cask 7 from the HFY Liberation Front," Nancy announced. The reptilian senator rose to his impressive height and addressed the assembly in the formal style his people preferred. "Honored colleagues, we gather to discuss the expansion of trade routes into the former restricted zones. My people support this proposal because it will bring prosperity to worlds that suffered under council neglect. The chair recognizes Senator Mill 3 from the HFY Collective," Nancy continued. The insectoid delegate's compound eyes glittered as she spoke through the translation system. "The collective agrees with our reptilian friends, but we wish to ensure that environmental protections are included in any development plans. Some of these worlds contain unique ecosystems that should be preserved." The debate continued for hours as representatives from different worlds worked together to craft legislation that would benefit everyone. Nancy watched with pride as former enemies found common ground and built consensus around shared values. This was what humanity had fought for during their long exile. Not the chance to rule over others, but the opportunity to create a system where all voices could be heard and all beings could reach their full potential. Emperor William toured the shipyards of New Terra, where the next generation of Imperial vessels was taking shape. These ships would not be weapons of conquest but tools of exploration and discovery. They would carry mixed crews to distant galaxies and establish peaceful contact with whatever civilizations they might encounter. Your Majesty, Admiral Price reported as she joined him on the observation deck. The deep space exploration fleet will be ready for launch in 6 months. We have volunteer crews from 37 different species eager to see what lies beyond our current borders. William nodded as he watched human and alien workers collaborating on the construction of vessels that represented the best of both technologies. The ships combined human innovation with alien expertise to create something neither could have achieved alone. What is the status of the Sol System project? The quantum barrier around Earth was finally deactivated last month. The original human colonies are being reintegrated into the Empire. Many of the descendants of those who stayed behind are amazed by what their exiled cousins accomplished. William smiled as he remembered his own visits to the world where humanity had begun its journey to the stars. Earth was no longer the center of human civilization, but it remained their spiritual home. The planet that had once been a prison was now a symbol of what could be achieved when a species refused to accept limitations. And the former council leadership? Most have accepted positions as advisors and consultants. Their experience with galactic administration is valuable, even if their methods were flawed. High Chancellor Zeph Prime has become quite an effective advocate for peaceful transition policies. William reflected on the irony of the situation. The beings who had once exiled humanity out of fear were now working to help other species avoid the same mistakes. The Empire had turned former enemies into allies not through force but through the simple act of offering them something better. Dr. Susan Hayes presented her latest research to the Imperial Science Council with obvious excitement. The expansion of human territory had provided access to alien technologies and scientific principles that complemented human innovation in remarkable ways. By combining our dimensional fold technology with Vorthan quantum mechanics and Keth-high materials, science we have achieved breakthrough results in faster-than-light communication, she explained to the assembled scientists. Messages can now be transmitted instantly across the entire galaxy without any delay or degradation. The implications were staggering. The Empire could maintain real-time contact with colonies and exploration fleets regardless of distance. Democratic governance could function effectively across thousands of light-years. Trade and diplomacy could operate with unprecedented efficiency. What about the long-range exploration project? We are ready to establish contact with civilizations in other galaxies. The new communication system will allow us to maintain contact with exploration fleets even when they are millions of light-years from home. Emperor William returned to his private office after the day's ceremonies and sat quietly contemplating the remarkable journey that had brought them to this moment. Humanity had been forgotten and exiled by beings who feared their potential. They had used that exile to become something greater than anyone had imagined possible. The species that had once been dismissed as chaotic troublemakers was now the foundation of the largest and most successful galactic civilization in history. They had proven that freedom was not chaos but the natural state of intelligent beings. They had shown that diversity was strength rather than weakness. They had